журналісти, ми
Hello, dear journalists. We will start our event. Thank you for coming. My name is Artem Shevchenko. I am the serviceman of the armed forces and the journalist, a colleague of yours. I was asked to moderate our press conference. The working language is Russian. Our speakers who are here, they will speak Russian. Therefore, if you will ask them, pay attention to this. Now we've got 5 more minutes, and we will start.
Я хочу представити учасників.
I'd like to present the participants of our today's press conference, which is dedicated to limited military operation of Russian forces in Kursk and Belgorod oblasts. That is Denis, the commander and founder, also called as White Rags of the Russian Volunteer Corps. That is Alexei Baranovsky, Lutik, who is the operator of UAV and volunteer fighter of the Freedom of Russia Legion, and that is the Holod or called serviceman who is representing the Siberian Battalion. So they are included to the Russian forces who were conducting the limited military operation started from the 12th of March until now. I will give the introductory word to each of them, and then we will switch to questions. I am asking you dearly to form not more than one question, taking into account that now there is a lot of your colleagues in the room. So we are switching to our press conference. I would like to give the floor to Denis White Rags, also known as White Rags, so the commander of such formation as Russian Volunteer Corps. Denis, but please take the microphone. Hello, friends. Thank you very much for coming here in such a big number. You visited our press conference, you came to our press conference, because as a matter of fact, there were no precedents to such things, that is limited military operation, which the forces of Russian weaponed opposition is now taking place at the territory of Russian Federation. As a matter of fact, what we can say as of now, and our enemy also recognizes that probably we could open the second front line and we could fully take the military actions to the territory of the enemy. Now the theater of military actions is not just the territory of Ukraine, but also the territory of Russian Federation. Therefore, of course, at the cost of such important changes and such expansion of the front line, we managed to weaken the pressure of military machine of the Kremlin to on the other parts of the front line, because the front line was stabilized as of now, because earlier we were talking that the state border just became a strong and long part, but now we can say that the state border is the continuation of the front line. By forces of our militaries and militaries of our units, we managed to create. It is very important that various units could fully join the military actions. Of course, it is clear that for Russian Volunteer Corps going to or crossing the Russian border is a kind of sports. We've been doing that earlier. We've been doing that more often than others. Nevertheless, I would like to think that such a good tradition that we are having every spring, such a good tradition, and we started that with the first attack to Bryansk in 2022, and it was supported by our partners from other Russian volunteer units or corps. So we managed to do that much stronger than last year. Therefore, these events also got such a significant scale, and it is widely known. Thank you very much, Denis. I give the floor to Alexei Baranovsky, Legion, the Freedom of Russia. He participated in this operation, and he was commenting that in media many times. Alexei. Thank you very much. Dear press, I'm really glad to greet you. As my colleague Denis mentioned, our special liberating operation happened with the maximum damage for the Russian side, for the side of Putin's army. It's not a secret that the army of Russian Federation, they are trying to dedicate their attacks or some kind of achievements to some dates. Like the 9th of May, they are trying to capture something, or to Putin's birthday, or to something like that. So the Russian army and Putin's army was going to conduct significant attack, let us say it briefly, to inauguration, to elections. So our operation, in the military sense, it broke these attack plans of the Russian army, and they had to, first of all, take their forces from Kharkiv direction and Kupiansk direction in order just to keep their Kursk and Belgorod oblasts, as of now, their oblasts. So actually, we broke their plans dedicated to elections and, again, Putin's kind of elections, putting him as a Tsar, as a matter of fact, and we made significant damage to armed forces of Russian Federation, and the information that we have as of now, they've lost 651 servicemen, sanitary losses, also 37 taking into captivity, and the problems, I think Denis will tell you better about that. But forces like Russian liberating forces destroyed 121 units of machinery and 50 units were broken. In addition, we distracted even tactical aviation of the armed forces of Russian Federation. They at least 323 avia hits using cabs, and all of that came to the territory of Belgorod and Kursk regions. So thanks to this limited military operation, the armed forces of Ukraine could stabilize the front line and cover the parts or cover the territories where the massive attack of Putin's army was expected. And our operation continues at present. We are conducting stabilization events after today's night attack on Kyiv. The unit of Legion, the Freedom of Russia, also hit with the drones. They hit Belgorod by drones, and today's information that 9 servicemen who were on the military object that we hit were destroyed, and 5 members, some volunteer formations, were also destroyed. So, as the Legion mentioned, for each hit on Kharkiv, we will hit as the answer Belgorod. So our liberating operation on the territory of Russia will continue. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to the third participant of our press conference, the fighter who is also named as Cold. And this is Siberian Battalion, and it's kind of the new unit in Russian liberating forces, even though they already have significant military experience. However, in such a large-scale attack, they participated the first time. So the floor is yours, please. Hello. As it was already mentioned, our unit was created quite recently, in 2023. But since then, I dare say that we are becoming stronger together. Like, we have more and more of us. And we are able to conduct such operations. Even, like, we can fight the Putin's regime. So we will continue, and more interesting things are waiting for Putin. And as this operation showed, even tactical aviation is not enough to stop us on our way. Thank you. Before switching to questions, I would like the participants to read the joint speech that they prepared as certain like resume to what was happening starting with the 12th of March, and that continues. Called, the floor is yours. Our liberating movement demonstrated the strength of Russian volunteers and weakness of Putin's regime. Together with our comrades, we proved that Putin is losing control over the situation more and more every day, and he is not able to protect even the territories of his own country. Russian opposition liberated 2 settlements, and Putin's army has lost a huge amount of machinery and more than 1,000 of their soldiers who were just killed under our weapons. As a result, even at a critical moment for his power during the days of elections, all the Putin's army could not withstand this attack. They could not conduct elections in oblasts where the real war was happening. The citizens of Kursk and Belgorod regions did not go to election because of the artillery fire. No one in their mind would be able to say that Putin was elected legally. Vladimir has lost the remnants of his power, and the power is leaving his hands. Russians can see that, and more Russians are joining us. Soon we will go to other cities. We are calling people of any nationalities to join us and to fight together against Putin's dictatorship. Only with weapons in your hands, being together, we will win, and we will create new Russia, strong, peaceful, and respected country. And we won't be ashamed to be citizens of such country. We will have new victories. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are switching to questions. Alexei wanted to add? I would like to say that actually, we had hard fights, and I would like to ask everyone to honor with a minute of silence those fighters of Russian units who died in this operation and in the previous ones. Thank you. Okay, so I will give the floor in turn, and I will be moderating harshly, because we have many representatives from foreign and Ukrainian media. Please raise your hand, then we are establishing the eye contact, and I give the floor to you, and then in turn, please present yourself. And hello, Natalia Molchanova, Ukraine Forum. Tell us, please, what is the attitude of locals to your movement? Did you succeed in establishing the contact with local authorities? Because we could see that you were encouraging them to evacuate the population, and maybe you succeeded in conducting some prisoner exchange. So the last question, Denis will answer. The first one's Alexei and Holod. Yeah, let us do that in turn. Locals are acting in the right manner, just the way we are calling them to do. They are hiding. Those who are in the zone of military action, they are hiding in the basements, and we were also creating humanitarian corridors so that in the evening, since 9 p.m. till 7 a.m., we stopped the fire from our side so that locals can leave the cities. So thousands of citizens used this opportunity, and indeed they left. And we were also calling to evacuate the citizens of Belgorod and Kursk, but regional authorities and Putin's governors, they were not helping the evacuation. at the time of the so-called elections. And after like 7 days after the beginning of the liberating operation and 8 days in Belgorod Oblast, so they started doing some evacuation measures. Why was it done in such a manner? Because this special electoral procedure was more important for them than lives of their population. However, I will repeat myself, we were encouraging the population to evacuate, and we were warning them that we will hit military objects on the territory of Belgorod and Kursk regions, only military objects. Yeah, as it was mentioned already, as a matter of fact, we forced Russian authorities of the local level to evacuate their population because they did not really want to do that. So evacuation was done somewhere in 1 day, somewhere like an hour before the military actions, even though we warned them beforehand. Dennis, about the captives. At present, no prisoners exchange is made as far as a range of the captives decided voluntarily to become the fighters of Russian volunteer corps. So now we are conducting interviews and checks of on different levels, and maybe they will join our unit. Like new volunteers, new fighters will join us. Otherwise, all of them will be given to Ukrainian side in order to add them to the exchange fund. Totally, it's 37 people whom we have as captives. Thank you very much. You, please, present yourself. And I will ask my colleagues, please, we have a lot of those who want to ask questions. Ask just one. So the first clarification, more RBK Ukraine, Yulia Kimova. You mentioned that you took a certain number of the armed forces. What is the number of those, and what part of frontline could you free from their presence? And what is your end goal? Are you going to Moscow, or you just want to distract the armed forces? Whom you are addressing this question? To everybody, I guess. But you said that, yeah, it is clear that if we are taking like the main hit, so we are taking the armed forces of our enemy on us. I can't say which part of the front line we kind of liberated, but we could increase the Plazdam and Krasnohorovka. The armed forces of Ukraine went to counterattack, and they just cleared this settlement from the soldiers of the enemy. Of course, it would have been impossible if the number of troops would remain the same, and approximately 323 Cubs were used by Russian Federation on Russian territory that was taken under control by the fighters of Russian volunteer military units. So these 323 Cubs were not used on the other parts of the front where they could make the situation worse for the armed forces of Ukraine. What was the second question? I'm sorry. Our end goal? Well, I think that here we have representatives of other units, and everybody will answer for themselves about their goals. But we were talking about our goal many times already, and our first task is to help the armed forces of Ukraine to win in this war, to stand for the territorial independence and wholeness of the country. That is goal number one. The second goal is to continue our liberating approach and to have the flag, our flag, on the Kremlin. And of course, to deconstruct the regime which is killing our motherland during not even 12 years. So that is our end goal, and we will go to that even after Ukraine's victory in this war. For the Russian Volunteer Corps, this war will continue. As for Siberian Battalion, I can say for sure that in terms of dismantling of Russian authorities, we have the same opinion, because that should not exist. This way of ruling should not exist. What will be there, it's not the military issue, it's the civilian issue. But first we need to do this job. And after that, the main thing is the possibility for the citizens of Russia to choose for themselves how do they want to continue living, in what format, and so on. But for that, we need to do the things that we need to do. We need to dismantle Putin's regime. Well, my colleagues are saying the right thing, because our goal is dismantling Putin's regime, and we have to understand that in addition to our 3 units, we also had some fighters from Ichkeria, and their goal is to liberate their motherland and Chechnya and from Kadyrov's clan. So what is the consequence of actions? Well, we will see on political situation, but the main task, of course, is to liquidate Putin's regime beyond the borders of Ukraine. And when we are on the territory of Ukraine, of course, we are participating in defending Ukraine. And this is going to the borders of 1991. Thank you very much. Let us switch to questions from international press. To the left, you, please. Hello, Ivan Gadanovich, VDR, the German television. I would like to ask you to make clear your plans after you win from the Putin's regime. Namely, do you think of the real elections, and will you be ready to agree with changing the borders of Russia till 1991 that existed, in case if you want to kind of some of the territories of Russian Federation might want some other things. As I mentioned already, this is the end goal, to liberate the people who are suffering now in Russia under this regime, and as soon as they can tell their opinion on any issue regarding their lives, whether it is territorial or whether it's the issue of like where you want to take your kid to which kindergarten, the future authorities that will be there for administering, let us say so, they will have to act according to the will of the citizens, of people. And whether that means joining some territories or like some territories would like to leave, if that will be in international format, the format which is recognized internationally, that won't be ignored, as Putin's regime is doing this right now. Denis, Alexei? Well, in our memorandum that is more than 1.5 years old already, we mentioned that we are supporting the nation's right for self-identification, and after our victory, we would like, of course, to create a national-oriented state, national-oriented parliament, national-oriented authorities, and national-oriented elite. Of course, the right of nation and regions, I would like to mention, for their self-identification, it's international norm, and this should happen democratically. As for the elections, they should take place at a certain point, but at first, we need to arrest the military criminals. We need to have the illustration. All the Putin's parties should be kind of eliminated, and some authorities, if they don't want to change, they have to be fired, dismissed. And this will be discussed later, but at first we need to liquidate Putin's regime, and then we will be able to build something on that place. Thank you. You, please. Katerina Denisova, Kyiv Independent. Representative of GUR, Andrei Yusov, was saying that Ukrainian intelligence is helping Russian volunteers to fight against Putin's regime. How and what resources, I mean weapons, are you using for this? Well, actually, we want to say huge thank you, first of all, to Vladimir Zelensky, the president and the chief commander, for creating, in general, our Russian volunteer corps, that we were entrusted to take weapons and to participate in defending Ukraine. And Kirill Budanov, he was speaking on the forum of supporting Russian volunteers. He joined online and he highly assessed our participation in defending Ukraine, and he supported our efforts in terms of liberating Russia. Of course, liquidation of Putin's regime and dismantling Putin's regime and the military defeat of Russia is within the interests of Ukraine. So Ukrainian authorities are supporting us in our efforts, but that's our task. And there is certain media support, and I guess there is some data from intelligence. I cannot tell you more, but all the military tasks are sold by us, citizens of Russia. And the support, we are grateful for the support from Ukrainian authorities. Would you like to add anything? Yep, Denis? Of course, in our operations on the territory of Russian Federation, we can rely on logistics that is supporting us from Ukrainian side. We can address Ukrainian side to evacuate our wounded people, and we are using the data from intelligence, Ukrainian intelligence. And actually, all the military infrastructure of our unit is interconnected with the military infrastructure of the Armed Forces of Ukraine and Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Then, of course, we are getting support from Ukrainian authorities in necessary amount in order to fulfill our tasks on the territory of Russian Federation. Thank you. Let us, ladies first, so to say. So just present yourself. Svetlana Gaga, Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. My question is, you are recruiting the captives and part from Wagner's military unit. How do they show up themselves when they are fighting with you? And are there some samples of maybe betrayals? Well, the captives who, as an experiment, you know, let us say so, last year they were added to our Russian volunteer corps. They are doing just great because they were really brave in fights, and the ex-fighters of the private campaign Wagner, they were participating in our rows in Avdiivka and Liman direction, and they were participating in this limited military operation that we were conducting on the territory of Russian Federation, and we continue conducting that, continue doing that. Those fighters, those militaries, they made the right choice, and they saved our good tradition to take only volunteers. Nobody was forcing them to join us. They did that because they considered this to be a right thing. They did it because as soon as a person is taken from the informational vacuum or information bulb that they are in when being in Russia, the person just opens their eyes to the things that are happening. They understand where is a lie and where is the truth. And actually, the decision to be on the side of light, as we are saying that, on the side of Russian Volunteer Corps, people make this decision quite quickly. And as for now, neither we nor they felt sorry for this decision. So we did not just give them opportunity to fight together with us and to change Russian pixel to the camouflage. We are giving them the opportunity to start their life from the scratch. We give them the feeling of a family, because Russian Volunteer Corps is not the usual military unit, because we are aiming to create the atmosphere of brotherhood, and we want to have kind of a military unit, good unit. So they are not just the military units, not just soldiers, but they are full members of our organization. They have friends and comrades. They are participating in all of our rituals of burying the fighters, etc., and they become the part of our mechanism. So I have no bad things to tell about that. I can just tell about their successes and their bravery. And I told about that to Ukrainian authorities. I think that this experiment is very successful, and we are going to continue attracting to this fight to involve other fighters who will decide to join us. Thank you very much. Let us go to questions from international agencies. We will start from the global media, such as Reuters, right? And then we will move on. Hello, you were saying that Ukraine is giving you some intelligence data. Well, does Ukraine provide you with weapons to fight? If not, then how do you can have tanks that you showed in your materials? Well, in our forces, we have weapons that we are getting as International Legion of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. So when we are on the territory of Ukraine, we are like the militaries of the Ukrainian army. They equal in all the rights in everything to the militaries, to Ukrainian militaries. So when we are going to the territory of Russia, we are the citizens of Russia. We are not those who are fighting from the armed forces of Ukraine. So these are trophy weapons. And it's not a secret that very often the weapons is going from one hand to the other ones, and we are using that. So we have various technique of Ukrainian production. So we are working as full on the territory of Ukraine. We are working as Ukrainian unit and as like partisans, as a matter of fact, partisan army when we go to Russia. Denis, you want to add? Sure. I would like to remind you that we should not underestimate the military trade, because since 2014, as you know, in modern like military shops, you can buy like tanks and systems of reactive fire. So if you have the opportunity, and I'm glad that we have such an opportunity, so we can buy anything. And we are using that, of course. But in general, I can say that we have a wonderful Ahmad thing. And using the opportunity, I would like to thank the heads of Chechen Republic for this present. The present that they made us without wanting to do so. We have now Tiger, the analog of the small transport. So we are relying on trophy technique. We started this tradition back last year when our Daniel Maznik, he stole from Gryboron the new machine, and we returned that actually to the motherland, and he was hitting its native block post. So we prefer our like technique. Okay, Ukrainian media and then international. We will do that in turn. Ukrainian media. Yep, we will prefer women a bit. Chernякova, TV channel Ukraine. I will have two questions. Yeah, I can speak Russian. So you said it's a tradition. So I would like to clarify whether how this military operation was different from the military operation in 2023 on fights. Did you understand that you're going there and what will happen? I think that we have a good tradition, and how the next year will look like, well, it will show us how that will be developed on all the fronts. But whether it's spring or whether it's this summer, the time will show us. But of course, the main difference from our previous raid became the scale which is much bigger, that we conducted in the active military phase and the territory of Russian Federation. It is growing, and the amount of military technique that we are using and our corpus in general, in terms of fighters, grew significantly since the day when it was just found. So I would say that at the beginning of this war in spring 2022, Russian Volunteer Corps consisted out of 3 fighters, me, myself, and 2 comrades of mine. And at present, we can conduct the limited military operations when applying technique on the territory of Russian Federation. We continue growing, and thanks to such successful operations that we are conducting on the territory of our enemy, this is also one of the goals of these operations. We are increasing our visibility. We are getting new volunteers. We are getting some new things, because more and more people learn about our corpus. They see our fight. They see how hard our militaries are working. Of course, the border is now being strengthened, and it's not the line of just kind of the line and the fence that we were coping with easily last year, but these are some strong points and blog posts and everything. Well, there were various engineering and like deminers, kind of fences or blocks. So the enemy is working and his mistakes, and they are strengthening the border from all sides. But nevertheless, we are also working on our mistakes. We are changing our tactics. Somewhere we are just making our pressure stronger when comparing to our first Bryansk attack. We are using the technique, and we are having a different number of people who are participating. Maybe a few words about the theater of military actions. If in May 2023 it was limited by 1 oblast, now we have 2 of them and few settlements and a few points of entrance. Maybe just a few words about expanding the theater of military actions. Alexei? Yeah, I just wanted to add that these raids on the territory of Russia, it's first of all just the visible part of the iceberg. The things that are more visible, and we are conducting the work on the territory of Russia all the time. First of all, that is air intelligence of the borderline territories and locations. What is happening there, where they are building something, where they are pretending to build something. We are monitoring the situation all the time, and we should know what is happening there. In addition to that, the drones, they are hitting the Belgorod Oblast all the time, and the Legion, the Freedom of Russia, they took Belgorod region as a domestic region hub, you know. And we were mentioning that already, and we are working all the time on Belgorod Oblast. And indeed, my colleague mentioned properly that that was the biggest attack of the United Russian Armed Forces, and I think that in the future, we will do that in a larger scale. I would like to add that we are not Putin. We are not sticking to certain dates, and they should await us 365 days per year along all the borders. And where they won't expect us to be, there they will see us next time. Okay, then. You and then you. Thank you, Demyan Shevko, The Independent, London. My question is, Russian opposition, which is at the border, like Kasparov, Mark Pegin, Ihor Ekamenko, they are quite impactful oppositioners who are abroad. They started mentioning that the most efficient opposition to Putin is doing that with a weapon in their arms. So they are signing memorandums, organizing some auctions, and so on. So does the ice melt between you or among you and oppositioners who are abroad? And how do you work with Navalny's team? And the second brief question. Your rates, guys, for the journalists, you created some difficulties because it is unclear how to mention you. Either you're fighting for freedom or you're kind of partisans or, I don't know, oppositioners. How do you perceive yourselves? And can we somehow, maybe in general, there is like Russian Liberating Front or something, but Russian Liberating Forces. How do you perceive yourself in this sense? Yeah, okay, I think that everybody has something to answer to this question. Well, as for the Russian opposition and migration in Kyiv, there was a forum a few days ago with the participation of Mark Fagin, and Zhenya Chirikova came, and also who was there, Ivan Tutrin from the Free Russia, Harry Kasparov was joining online, Ilya Ponomarev. So correspondingly, certain support from the side of immigrant centers is there. Of course, we have the third year of war, and just during the third year, they try to provide some support. So recruiting, if we have that more widely in Europe, that is also good. As for now, to find the active work, because we are doing that with Siberian Battalion, where is all the opposition in this direction. So the direction is right, and we would like to have some more serious results, of course. We are branding ourselves. Of course, each unit has own brand, own flag, own peculiarities, I would say. And in general, we are fighting for freedom. We are united Russian liberating forces. Probably this is how I would call it. I would like to add that in general, the trend which we are seeing is quite optimistic, because more and more people are understanding that the weaponed fight is unfortunately the only way, and a special election operation of Putin, I think it showed us all this thing. And unfortunately now, to stand for our right, for the selection, for the freedom of faith, just freedom as a normal person in Russia, you can do it, and you should do that only with weapons in your hands. The peaceful protests do not work. Civilians without weapons in their hands, this doesn't work, unfortunately. You know, unfortunately, these are not some half-wide kind of opposition at the beginning of the 20th century. In our units, we have people of totally different layers. Ex-office workers, those who are working with their hands, engineers, mechanics. So people of different age, of different profession, different personal experience. Also, we have ex-heads of organizations, and all of them realize at certain time that just to light the, just to give some light is not enough. Do you have something to add? Yes, of course. I always have something to add. I would like to mention that, of course, there are certain differences among us, that these are differences in choosing the way, how we are moving to our joint goal. And our goal is the victory, is to help Ukrainian side in this war and to win in the war that we will be having on the territory of our motherland. And as for the question how to present us properly, first of all, that is Russian National Liberating Movement, because we are deeply confident that the Putin's regime is destroying and killing Russian people. They hate any nationalism, including Russian nationalism, which is inappropriate for them. So his regime is our enemy. It's just Russian nationalists. They were fighting the regime long before the beginning of this war and long before the events that happened in 2014. So as a matter of fact, this war is continuing our war that we started many years ago. As for the position of representatives, bright representatives of Russian opposition, thanks God, during the third year of war, it started changing. And in their environment, there is an understanding that it turns out that neither forums, nor round tables, nor some kind of paper glasses won't be able to remove the Putin's despotism. And we need to destroy some illusions that Russian opposition has, maybe sometimes, because the physical, the natural person won't conduct the role of the leader or some kind of the solution center for Russian volunteers, military volunteers, and all the efforts should be aiming at supporting the Russian units that are participating in war. Of course, I'm talking about our comrades. I'm talking about our unit because we are attacking. We are the very this edge of the knife that has to go into the heart of Putin's regime, or maybe the heart of Putin himself. So we are against any kind of unclear statements and empty actions that do not lead to factual strengthening of our units. There is no fight except for the weapon, for the armed fight. And fortunately, many representatives of opposition are recognizing that. I was talking to Hari Kasparov, and he is really decisive, and Ms. Chirikova, since the very beginning of war, she was giving good feedback about the Russian volunteer corps. And we are doing the only possible efficient work, the war against the regime. And if in this war they are not ready to participate, then they should help us, or they should not call themselves Russian opposition. Thank you. Ukrainian media, then international, and then you. Yeah, Ukrainian media. Who wants to ask the question? Okay, you. You, and then Al Jazeera, and then BBC. Shevchenko, present time. Putin just called you that you're betrayed, and he said that he will identify each person. Aren't you afraid of some revenge in the territory of Ukraine? Aren't you afraid for your security and safety? I would like to remind you that we came to war, and that is dangerous by itself. How can we be afraid even more? Yes, for Putin's regime, each person who wants to breathe freely and to speak freely, that is the person who betrayed him, I don't know, the traitor, the follower of some bad values, etc., etc., but we should not pay attention to what they say. We should pay attention to what they do. I don't see some special danger except for the one that I felt already, and I will feel many times again. during the military actions. So, yeah, it's like more than aviation bomb, which will threaten me. Actually, I don't know what we can speak about here because we understand the price for all of that. We joined this fight consciously. And during the first day, when the big war has started, I took the political decision, so to say, about my life. I chose the side. I am defending Ukraine. I joined Ukrainian territorial defense in spring in 22, and we are fighting Putin's regime. Since many of us, I guess all of us, we lived in Russia and we were fighting the regime, and now we have the historical chance with the weapon in our hands to give some problems to the regime and as a maximum to destroy it, and we have to use the chance. Of course, we are perceiving seriously the threats of Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin's threats addressing us, because it is clear that the Federal Security Service and the foreign intelligence, they have long hands, so to say. And if the president is feeling so bad about that he says that we need to be found and punished, then, well, you can see that here in the room we have the security service of Russian Volunteer Corps who are following me all the time. They are, let us say, the higher part of our volunteer corps. I would say we treat our security seriously, and I think that everybody who's present here, they understood what they are doing when going to open confrontation with the Kremlin regime. And we are doing everything possible for our own security and safety. And then everything is in the hands of fate. As for the betrayal, Vladimir Vladimirovich likes to make historical parallels and to call us like Vlasov's people and tell about their fate. I would like to remind everyone that Russian three-colored flag, on the background of which Mr. Putin, Vladimir Putin, is throwing such loud words, it's the flag of Vlasov's army, actually. So with historical parallels and historical excursus, he did a bit too much recently. So the issue of betrayal is a philosophical issue, you know, because at certain point, Mr. Volodin said that in Russia there is Putin, so if we betrayed such Russia, I don't see a big problem in that, because I never sweared in to serve him, and so Putin is doing that in anti-Russian way, anti-national way, and like no one betrayed him.
Omar Al-Haj, Al Jazeera's correspondent. My question is to Commander Khalot. I hope I spell your name in a good way. Previously you called fighters around the world to join your operation. In the meanwhile, do you have any foreign fighters fighting alongside with you? And in the future, do you have the intention to coordinate your operation with states rather than individual fighters, like France, for example, with all these speculations and rumors circling around having inact fighters, French soldiers in Ukraine. And also, I just want to ask about your tactics. So at the beginning of your operation, you utilized the hit-and-run tactic, but as far as I'm concerned, now you have positions, you confiscated cities or villages. So did you develop your own warfares, or you received some level or tactical aids from Ukraine or other allies? Thank you.
As for the foreign people who can help us, we have many comrades in arms. Well, it's logical, I guess, to mention this if somebody doesn't understand it, that the main core of those who are fighting on Russian territory are Russians. These are citizens of Russia, and that should have happened since the very beginning, and that is how it is. As for the interaction on the level of the states, here we have Ukrainian state, and they are solving the issues of this level together with us. And that is the coordination that will happen in a bit different format. Yes, we were calling everyone who wants to change the situation to join us. And mainly, of course, we meant those Russians who left into different countries of the world. And now, at present, actually, they do not just live and have a good life, but they are surviving, because even in spite of Russian propaganda, there's a lot of immigrants, and they feel the pressure of this situation, not in terms of that they did not get a visa to go somewhere, but in terms of that they are feeling this, and they cannot live normally when such war is happening, literally between or with their nearest neighbors. Let us say so. Earlier on, no one never had some negative thoughts, especially some thoughts about attacking them. That is in general. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Yep. Hello, correspondent BBC. I would like to present yourself, please. Sarah Langford. I think everybody had seen the video a few days ago where your fighters were standing in a Ukrainian village and they said that they are in Russia. I just wanted to ask, how can you answer the critics and skeptics who are saying that the things that we are seeing here is more political operation than a serious military operation? And what can you tell Ukrainians who live or used to live in the villages, who are abroad now and who's lost everything? How can you make them sure? How can you persuade them that you're doing something serious? Well, I would like to be the first one. I think everybody has something to add here. First of all, those villages were lost due to the attacks of Russian aviation, artillery, etc., etc. This is also a sign that, yes, psychological effect was wonderful from our side in terms of Russian authorities, but the scale of the counterattack that they were doing, they were trying to make, as it is popular to say, it's a psychological operations or serious powers were used against us. And as Denise mentioned earlier on, it helped us to make the situation easier on the other parts of the front in this war. Dear colleagues, we need to understand that Vladimir Putin started the war, and all the responsibility for the victims is on Vladimir Putin's shoulders. So the war came to Ukrainian cities, now it came to Russian cities as well. And with our actions, actually, we broke the attack actions of Russia dedicated to the elections and inauguration of the president. So that is like the classical, vehicle. Is that one person who will suffer, or like we will turn and others will suffer? The problem is that there is always the responsible person, and this is Vladimir Putin. With our actions, we are just reducing the possible consequences from his war and his military plans. It is very important to underline that, I guess. in order to have some effect, so it's just not the Ukrainian villages, but some real... Yeah, as for the video, I understand. We don't have the task to persuade bloggers and skeptics, etc. We have a huge amount of video materials that will be processed and published. We cannot publish everything at the same time because, first of all, it's physically hard to get all of that and to process all of that. And also is the issue of safety because we have positions, we don't want to show them. Step by step, all the video materials will be verified and will be published. And analysts will be able to get information from there. As for the videos, I cannot comment this because we were not noticed in such kind of videos, but I would like you to pay attention to the things that we were publishing in the nearest 48 hours. These are attacks, these are some ambushes, everything like in a good quality Hollywood movie, you know, explosions, fights. The quality of our video materials, I think, will be assessed in a good manner. Those who are doing fact-checking, those who just even want to watch the qualitative action, so to say. As for the fate of the villages, borderline villages, they survived occupation. And for them not to survive this war again, because they were the first one to experience this, unfortunately, villages near the borders, they are suffering most. And that is clear. Our task is to bring peace as soon as possible, both for Ukrainian lands and for Russian Federation. And unfortunately, the authorities of Russian Federation did not leave us any other chance for that, but by military way. Our goal is good. It is to take the enemy as far from the state border of Ukraine as possible. We succeeded. As you understand, all the borderline territory with Russia is turning into a gray zone step by step, as we all know, in 7 regions of Belgorod Oblast. There are block posts on the entrance, so everything that is before the block post, Russian Federation is not controlling, and that is all one big gray zone, buffer zone, as somebody is calling that. The best opportunity to protect Ukrainian territory is probably to create such a gray zone where Russian militaries won't be able to take place. So we are working on that. And of course, I'm really sorry that in the process of military actions, the civilians are suffering. But I am confident as a person who, from the very first day of active phase of this war, is participating. Unfortunately, without victims, without destruction, the modern war is impossible. We are working for almost 1 hour already. I would ask journalists to collect the questions that we have. We will switch to, like, step by step, we will come to the end of our communication. We cannot do that for a long time, so just think who wants to ask something. Who is raising the hand? You wanted? You already asked? Yep, please present yourself. Nope. Here and then you.
My name is Lorenzo Cremonesi, writing for the national Italian daily Corriere della Sera from Milano. I think it was Mr. Alexei who before said something very interesting. With our operation, we stopped the plan, the Russian plan, to attack in the region of Kharkiv. We know that Putin spoke about buffer zones. And you said that you had the impression, or maybe you had the data, which say that the Russians wanted to attack Kharkiv during the operation. Can you confirm that? Can you, why you say that? You really think that the Russians wanted to attack Kharkiv in that area, and you think that you are there now in the Belgorod area in order to prevent the same operation in the future? Thank you very much.
Why? Because we had the information from intelligence. So based on that, we realized, because they had a lot of reserves in Belgorod Oblast, and we knew that they are going to attack, to make some hits, and to conduct, well, they wanted to conquer some settlements and to call that the liberation of Russian territories as usual and everything. And usually they dedicate that to some dates. So Putin's inauguration, it's the possible date for them because they wanted to make their dictator happy. So now these plans did not come true. The front line is stabilized and the armed forces of Ukraine covered the dangerous directions. And by the way, we had some calls from the commanders of the brigades who are brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine, because they highly evaluated our participation on breaking the plans of attack from the side of Belgorod. Yulia Zubchenko, Espresso TV channel, you were mentioning about recruiting that mainly, I mean, you have the captives who joined you, but who is included to your units mainly, and how can people come to you? As for Siberian Battalion, all our warriors are volunteers. In order to join us, you need to go through to communicate with a structure which is called like civil council. That is, you write down, you fill in some forms. So I think it will be in press release. So there are a few stages, and it is happening quite quickly nowadays. So just write, join us. So all the communication of potential recruits and volunteers of the battalion, the Freedom of Russia, usually starts in the Telegram channel. Now we have 240,000 of subscribers, I guess. Chatbot, then we are communicating in encrypted messengers. We are focusing both on the citizens of Russia who are living in Ukraine. Actually, at the moment of invasion, there's a lot of such. We are talking about hundreds, thousands of people, and any of them can, through like any center of like mobilization, they can come and they can mention that they want to go to the Legion, the Freedom of Russia. But actually, we are also calling thousands of Russian immigrants, those who are now in Europe. They are doing nothing there. If if you want to fight the Putin's regime, just get in contact with us, and we know how to efficiently fight with Putin. And of course, there are people who are still in Russia, and they are contacting us as well, and some of them are damaging Putin's military infrastructure with their actions, kind of quiet and secret actions. Some are leaving via the third countries to join us. So we are encouraging you, like everybody who wants to contact us, because we need some information about like where they are hiding their military vehicles, how they are moving, etc. So we have such a connection with the citizens of the settlements on the borders, and we encourage also people to contact us via the chatbot. I would like to remind you that the captives are different, and when you are saying the word captives, I would like to remind you that the volunteer principle of forming our unit remains also in this case. Any person who says that they want to become our fighter, they have the possibility to choose, because they can come back to motherland with the prisoners exchange. They can wait till the end of war. They always have a choice. But if they decide voluntarily to become the fighter, our fighter, and if after the interview we understand that the person can do that, we are treating him just like any other volunteers who came to us from the territory of Russian Federation. because each captivity is a separate story, and some people were coming to captivity with anti-military demonstrations. That is, at first they were going to some anti-military position. Usually they were going to prison because they were told that they violated some laws, etc. And then they became the fighters of Storm that they were putting some weapons to the pocket of the person, and they said, like, either you go to jail or you go to the front line. So, you know, each story of going to captivity is very personal, very different. I don't see any problem in order to rely on these people on the front line, because they are showing themselves as really reliable people. Of course, we will increase our recruiting process among the private Wagner's campaign, and I would say that, as I've mentioned already, that they are professionals and they are showing themselves as a really good fighter. So the doors of Russian volunteer corps are open also for Ukrainians. We have a huge number of guys who are sharing our ideology, and they are, you know, have the close spirit to our, and they also want to become our fighters. So we are glad to greet them among us. And of course, after such actions as this one, as our military operation, I think that any unit, our unit as well, is having a significant increase of volunteers. And in our plans, we have creating of the unified center, where the applications will come from all of the regions of our motherland, first of all, and any person who, first of all, wants to fight with weapons in their hands against the Putin's regime can go there, and further on they will be added. Either they will join either a Siberian battalion or Russian volunteer corps, etc. Okay, let us move to the final questions, the last three questions, okay? You, and then you, and then you or you. Okay. Give the microphone, please.
Cristian Segura from the Spanish newspaper El País. All of you underscore that you are fighting for the same thing, freedom in Russia. But you also mentioned that there are particularities between your units. I want to know what kind of particularities there are. What difference make you, for example, not to be a unique organization or military unit? Thank you very much.
Obviously, Russian Volunteer Corps, from the very beginning, we said that Russian Volunteer Corps is a nationalist organization. We have never concealed, we have never denied our nationalist views. We speak from position of a conservative, traditionalist way of thinking, way of view. Thus, we always emphasize that our unit is not just a guerrilla fighters group, is not just some sort of freedom fighters group. We represent Russian freedom movement, so to say, because we're not just fighting against Putin and his regime, we're also fighting for ability for Russians afterwards to have their own state. And I assume guys from Siberian Battalion, guys from Freedom Russia, they do have a different stance on that. They do have different political stance. So this would be maybe the major difference between our groups. And because we have a different political stance, we do have different approach to the way we recruit, to the way we run our units. We, for instance, do have some lections in ideology, not just military craft, not just physical education, but we do have, as I said, some lections and lessons on ideology, because from my point of view, ideology is something that fortifies a unit. This is concrete that holds the whole building together. That's why we do have certain ideological, let's say, lessons that we use. We also have some traditions that we have already established in our unit. That maybe would be a major difference between our groups. Thank you.
Yeah, as for Siberian Battalion, our main goal is basically to give the regions and nations of Russia first right to self-identify without repressions, and to give these regions and nations far wider autonomy as they have now, and end this how do you call it? And end this methodology of over-centralizing a lot of resources, power, and decisions in one place, such as Moscow right now.
Sorry, my school English is bad. В Легион Свободы России.
In Legion of Freedom of Russia, we include people of different political views, and we have some who are closer to liberals. There's a significant number of those who were the followers of Alexei Navalny, and we are calling all those who want to have revenge for his death, for the death of the leader, one of the leaders of Russian opposition, to join us. We have people of different political views. I will repeat myself, different nationalities. And there are people who, before the big war, they were not interested in politics. However, in such obstacles, they made a decision that it's time to work on politics in the radical form, the most radical one, which just can't be. And in all of that, we are united by one thing. We want to have the victory of Ukraine. We want to help Ukraine achieve this victory, and we want to destroy Putin's regime. This is the main ideological, I won't say like strength, but probably thesis, which is uniting our fighters. Two last questions, please. You? Yep.
When you're operating in Russia, are you operating also with regular Ukrainian army units? Do you need them to support you when you are on raids? I know you're reluctant to give numbers, but there's some skepticism internationally about your strength. Can you give us some idea of your numbers? And what percentage of your recruits are regular Russian army defectors?
Former soldiers who now ended up being prisoners of war, ended up in captivity, who later on joined our ranks. We do have some recruits who have basic military service as their background. So we obviously do have guys with military background, those who come from the Wagner private military company, who joined our ranks lately as well. So yeah. On the other hand, we obviously have really like 18-year-old guys who have zero military background, but they are fighting like tigers, as we used to say. They showed themselves in this, proved themselves worthy in this particular operation, which is great achievement. I said already, my guys with baby faces have just destroyed Russian special forces during this operation, so I'm really proud of them, and I'm happy, and they're also happy that they all made this choice with joining our ranks. Regarding to the first question, I responded in Russian, maybe didn't get the translation. We do rely on Ukrainian military infrastructure during our raids. So that means evacuation of the wounded, that means petrol, that means ammunition, that means intelligence. So everything they can provide us with before the state border, we obviously heavily rely on that. I cannot speak for Siberian Battalion, and I cannot speak for Legion of Russia, Freedom of Russia, but obviously Russian Volunteer Corps is the biggest from these organizations because we have started earlier, and we maybe our recruitment base is a bit more likely to join our ranks, because for nationalists it's a pretty likely through our, because of our ideology, to join a fighting campaign, a fighting group like we used to be at the very beginning. So now we are a proper regiment, so we can afford to conduct operations of this scale on Russian territory.
Yeah, as for Siberian Battalion, of course we have different people with different backgrounds, with military experience. Some of them have like actual war experience in previous wars, some of them not. I didn't have that when I joined. As for our numbers, I suggest you to look at the response from Russian army and figure out what it is. It says about our numbers and our capabilities more distinctively than, you know, any number we can give you.
Ну, на самом деле,
Well, actually, I would like to add that according to Ukrainian legislation, the units cannot name how many warriors, how many fighters they've got, and we are acting according to this legislation. But this is very classical, you know. At first they are laughing at you, then they are fighting with you, and then you win. So we cannot tell you don't be skeptical, you know, because our actions are talking for themselves, and the further the more.
Off, as I said, as a tiny group, and the very first time we were mentioned on Russian news, they said, "Oh, look, this is a TikTok battalion consisting of 5 guys." So that was the start. And now, during this military operation that we have been conducting, Ministry of Defense said almost every day that they are killing like 50 to 100 Russian Volunteer Corps fighters. So we went the way from TikTok battalion, TikTok group consisting of 5 guys, to we kill 50 of them every day, like throughout 2 years. So you can imagine that obviously even the enemy recognizes that we have grown in numbers rapidly and very seriously.
Прошу, чи є ще запитання?
Are there some more questions? Probably you, and that's it. You also wanted? Yeah, 2 last questions, 1 and 2. Thank you very much, Katya Lutska, German edition Spiegel. You were saying that there was a forum of supporting Russian volunteers. Why there were no representatives of the Russian Volunteer Corps? That is the first question to you, Denis. And the other question, you mentioned that 2 villages were captured. So what do you need in order to further go into the territories of Russia? We think that Mr. Ponomaryov is a political swindler, and we don't think that the events where he is one of the organizers or the member of the board, some kind of truthful one. That was one of the reasons why we did not want to participate in that event. And the other thing is that the foundation, who was the organizer, we don't know it. And for Russian Volunteer Corps and Siberian Battalion, as far as I know, never helped since the beginning of our activity. So why are they the organization who's helping all the volunteers? It's unclear, because we also have the one who is helping to different organization and a fund the foreign volunteer, but that organization was not even named as the existing one by organizers of this fund. So we considered our participation not necessary, and we did not support that memorandum and some documents that were signed. We did not sign that, and we won't. As for the participation and possibility on the territory of Russian Federation, what is needed in order to get more than 2 villages, let us say so. We are not setting the goal of going to 1, 2, or 3 villages. We understand perfectly, and we are assessing our opportunities realistically when understanding the military machine of the Kremlin. And of course, yes, we can get 3 villages, and just to get these, to capture these villages and then to lose all our people there for holding that a few months. But there is no sense in that. So you can see what Kozinka turned into in Gotova and other settlements that are near the border. Some of them have no electricity, not a single house that is not damaged. All of that is turned into ruins. This is the classical tactics of Russian military machine. If they cannot defeat the enemy, then they are destroying everything they see. And yeah, of course, there's no sense to stand on some territories, Russian territories. We are not in the phase, actually, when we are ready to capture some regional centers and cities and keep them. Because as for now, I think that Russian Volunteer Corps and others are not ready to allow themselves to conduct the operations of this. If you remember, but we are growing. If you remember, our first raid to Bryansk allowed us to be a few hours on the Russian territories. Now we are talking about days. Now we are destroying the soldiers of the enemy, and we are controlling the regions. And we are making the mood of Mr. Hladkov and Starovoyt worse. People need to understand that our task is not to keep some settlements, but we are more like the quick changes. And this is partisans tactic, you know, when we are counterstanding the enemy who is bigger than we are, much bigger. And we also face the fact that the Russian armed forces, they are having some bases for living on the streets in the settlements where the civilians are. And this makes our fighting with them more difficult because they are using the kind of life protection, life shield, and we are trying to just hit only the military objects. Probably we will end. If we have the last question, you can ask. Yep, you, and then right after that, the participants will leave, and please treat that with understanding because of 1 hour and a half already. French press, a very brief question. What were your losses during the operation? I would like to remind you that the operation, even at present, is continued, and there is sense to talk about losses after the end. We are always open about our losses, so I'm asking you to follow our publications on our official Telegram channel, and about each fighter who lost his life in our rows. We are talking about that. We are writing necrologues. We are conducting a ceremony. So we are not hiding our losses. We are proud of the fact that there are guys who are changing their city and sometimes very good life. They are changing that for the war life, and sometimes they are dying here. I would say that in the framework of this operation, one of the fighters of the corpus not to go to captivity. He exploded himself with a hand grenade, and he will be always among the heroes of our unit. As for the other losses and other fighters who died, we will tell you about that after the end of the limited operation. The same with the Legion. We are publishing necrologues about all of their comrades. Now it's not the time to speak about that. I can just say that we are helping the families of those who died, because many of them have families in Ukraine, and that these are the things that we should do. From the side of the Siberian Battalion, I would like to say that as soon as this will be formed and safe, we will publish the data, because our fighters, they were fighting and they were dying for the things they believed in, and we won't forget them. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you for the participation.
$0.96.